Sometimes a Pokemon theory gets so big that everybody knows about it. Thus, everybody has talked about it already. Well, recently, I discovered that I too am a part of this collective known as everybody. And yet, I haven't talked about it yet. So it's time to remedy this situation by talking about the title of this video. Sharpedo is a long-lost relative of Garchomp. Perhaps even a lost middle form. And now you're thinking to yourself, how could Sharpedo at one point have been the pre-evolution of Garchomp? I mean, fish? Bipedal dragon? It doesn't make much sense, but... Oh wait, Dragonite! Dratini is now a fish. It's also possible that Gible is essentially Sharpedo's brother, who then evolved into Garchomp. There's plenty of details to go around, and that's what we're going to talk about today on Gnoggin. You know what's great? Surfing, also sharks, as is skirting around censorship, price discrimination, and web pages and services that are blocked from people in certain countries. And that's exactly what today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN, does for you. A lot of websites track your data and market to you specifically, which includes slightly raising the price of something if they think you're willing to spend that little bit extra on it. It's pretty rude, but with Surfshark, doesn't happen. Plus, it keeps all of your data secure with encryption, like a digital moat with sharks in it. And a part of this data that it keeps safe is your location data. You can trick any site into thinking you're somewhere else. Is their content only available in North America or Europe and you're in, well, the opposite? Well, get a shark and surf on it! Problem solved! It's awesome and extremely affordable. Currently, the best price for a premium VPN on the market. And it's an even better deal with the coupon code Gnoggin. 83% off and an extra month free! So don't miss out! The link is at the top of the description. Mega thanks to you, and of course, to Surfshark VPN. Now, I bet you're wondering, do we find perfect sponsors for videos? Or do we make perfect videos for sponsors? The answer is yes. So you may be wondering how dumb I am. Obviously, Sharpedo and Garchomp are different Pokemon, which is valid, and an absolutely right point. But remember, it's Game Freak we're talking about here. They think that adding Bouffalant and not having it related at all to Tauros is an okay thing to do. What even is a love disc? Not a pre-evolution to a Lomomola, that's what. Can't believe I actually said that right. I always call it Alamamolanola. But as irritating as this may be to some, these are literally perfect representations of sister groups or sister taxons. What's a sister taxon? Glad you asked. It's a phylogenetic term denoting the closest of relatives of another given unit in an evolutionary tree. Sorta like convergent evolution or divergent evolution, which is kind of the opposite, but like what even is evolution in Pokemon? Not right is the answer to that. Convergent evolution is basically, it's similar creatures that don't necessarily share a previous relative, but they both evolve similar traits, like Stegosauruses and Kentosauruses. Both got large keratin spikes, but they each independently evolved in completely different areas, like opposite sides of the planet, essentially. They don't have a recent common ancestor at all, and yet they both got these spikes because it just so happens to be a design that works really well. So, two completely unrelated dinosaurs got them. It's also similar to how both birds and bats evolved flight, but through totally different means. It's fascinating. But this is the exact opposite of what I think Gible and Carvana have done. They would be examples of divergent evolution. Basically, two animals that likely share a common ancestor, but their traits and features wound up differing drastically, like Darwin's finches. They all started as basic finches, and when they moved to the Galapagos Islands, and each island has a different food source, like nectar versus seeds, well, eventually the finches of the islands diverged and became different species of finches. Some now have long beaks for nectar, while others have stout, thick, strong beaks for breaking seeds. While we don't actively see this happening in Pokemon, because its definition of evolution would work better as metamorphosis, like caterpillars to butterflies, we can see that our definition of evolution and adaptation does happen in the Pokemon world too. Mew is stated to be the common ancestor of all Pokemon, and Archon is said to be the common ancestor of all bird Pokemon. And there's a reason that prehistoric Pokemon look like prehistoric creatures. Long-term generational adaptation does still happen in Pokemon, clearly. And these 5 Pokemon are a great example of it. So let's add another bit of information. Gible is categorized as the land shark Pokemon, an apt name for a terrestrial creature that looks similar to a shark. But then we see that Gabite and Garchomp are categorized as the cave Pokemon. Last I checked, Gible still hangs out in caves, so why is it that it's categorized as if it's the first shark to be on land? I mean, it would make sense to give it said category if it was the fledgling terrestrial creature. Also, here's one of Gible's dex entries. Gible once lived in the tropics, and to avoid cold, it lives in caves warmed by geothermal heat. So again, why isn't this one called a cave Pokemon too? Anyways, then Carvanha's dex entry states that it lives in massive rivers that course through jungles. They also live in jungles. How peculiar. Is it possible that they are from the same jungular ancestor that Poke-archaeologists keep digging up and confusing ancient Carvanha for very similar but different ancient Gibles? Or perhaps Carvanha is still the same as it was then, similar to how crocodiles are still the same after all these millions of years. But something must have made some of them make the switch from sea to land, meaning that something had to push it out of the water. Either it couldn't compete against other ocean predators for food. I should probably mention, Carvanha lives in rivers, but when it evolves, it moves to the ocean. Gotta clear that up. So maybe in its ancient form, it couldn't properly compete against other ocean predators for food. And it should also be noted that even an overabundance of Sharpedos may be those other ocean predators. Or it found a new food source on the shores, a better, more abundant food source. So the Sharpedos who had a better time reaching the shores and making it back to the ocean fared better. Eventually, these tiny little fins became little teeny tiny wags. Looking to the Sonoan seas where Garchomps live, there really aren't many things that could beat a Sharpedo-esque animal. Possibly there were too many Gyarados or Milotic at its hunting grounds and it had to search for other sources of food, land-based food. Or maybe it's not predator-based and it's just amount of food-based. I mean, what do we have for Sharpedos to eat here? Magikarp? Remoraid? Maybe the occasional Wingull? I'd say Finneon, but I'm sure even Sharpedo forgets that that Pokemon exists. Plus, the water in Sinnoh is cold. It's the northernmost region yet. And being jungle and tropic natives, it's no wonder that Sharpedos aren't actually found in Sinnoh, but Garchomp are, living in caves to escape the cold. Now here's a true statement. Carvanha looks nothing like Gible. True. But, well, it also doesn't really look like Sharpedo either. But Sharpedo's design is very similar to all three of these land sharks. We have the base skin colors, and then there's red and yellow, though Sharpedo's eyes are the red part, and technically eyes aren't part of your skin colors. However, Carvanha has quite a bit of red on it, so it's all up to evolution on what to keep and what to trash. It's complicated. But specifically, the final evolution, or the full grown-up Pokemon, Garchomp and Sharpedo, share quite a few traits. I mean, both have a yellow star-shaped patch of skin on their face regions. They both have fins that have notches in them. They both have rather impressive teeth. I mean, they're all sharks. And even their Mega Evolutions. Oh yeah, they both get Mega Evolutions. But even their Mega Evolutions, they both just get a stupid amount of spikes. On top of this, they all have the capability of having the ability Rough Skin. All 5 of them. Same ability. And finally, they both have gills behind their eyes. At least that's what I assume these lines are referencing. This is rather important, as they are both in the shape of a normal shark. However, Garchomp's gills are much, much smaller and lower on its body. But this isn't all that odd, as it's now a land-based creature. Its need for gills is almost non-existent. These gill flaps may even be non-functioning. They are just slowly going away. Many species, humans included, have useless parts slowly going away. The reason being that, well, they used to be important for our ancestors, but kind of useless now. Why do we have tailbones? Or any of these things? Now, quick theory summary before I bring up counterpoints. The theory goes, the abundance of Carvanha in jungle rivers and the abundance of Sharpedo in the nearby oceans led to food scarcity, causing some of them to start seeking food in the shallows, the shores. Of course, this means many of them would get beached and die. But the ones that didn't, the ones that had a better way of getting back to the ocean, lived on to breed. Eventually, little leggies were formed, and as these Mons continued to expand their territories further and further northward, they started to reach colder and colder waters. Eventually, the waters were too cold for Sharpedo, and thus, in this area, without competition from the water-based Sharpedos, the landier Sharpedos began to flourish, and find warmth in the caves at night. Eventually, being fully land-based, they lost their first evolution, Carvana, and continued to grow longer legs to do better and better on land, eventually leading to an evolution in Garchomp, the fiercest predator in Sinnoh, as any full-on land shark should be. Now then, let's start some counterpoints, and also explain why I think they are the way they are today. It's because of balance. Maybe the plan was to have Sharpedo evolve into Garchomp back in Gen 3, but there weren't that many dragon types yet. And I know it's rather weak, but adding another non-legendary dragon, i.e. Garchomp, would be a bit overkill at the time. The dex was already rather extended, so they may have just saved the idea of a shark with legs and created a whole new line for the next generation. Plus, Sharpedo already was a decent type combo. A type combo that could have still worked for Garchomp, but not as well as Garchomp's current type combo. Plus, Sharpedo was cool enough to leave as a final stage rather than a middle stage, so they could have just updated Sharpedo's stats, make it a final evolution, and waited until the next gen for their greatest idea, a land shark. It's an A+ idea. Ultimately, it's all theoretical, but it wouldn't be the first time Game Freak did something like this, and it also wasn't the last. So what do you think? Let me know down below. And while you're surfing down there, shark on over to the link in the description, Surfshark VPN, for the best deal on a premium VPN. And until next time, never stop using your noggin.